We're the first civilization in human history expected to get both sexual fulfillment and emotional intimacy from the same person for decades, without backup options, while pretending we don't want anyone else. Every other culture either had concubines, courtesans, sacred prostitutes, or just honest acknowledgement that marriage was economics and sex was elsewhere. We eliminated all that and announced, one person must be your best friend, co-parent, financial partner, emotional therapist, and pornographic fantasy. Then we act surprised when 70% of marriages report sexual dissatisfaction. We didn't create a higher form of love. We created an impossible standard built on a category error. And here's what nobody wants to admit. The reason we cling to this impossible standard, the reason we keep trying to force one person to be everything, isn't because we believe it works. It's because admitting it doesn't work would require us to change. And change, real change, the kind that demands you examine the stories you've built your entire life around. That's terrifying. It's easier to blame your partner. It's easier to say you haven't found the right person yet. It's easier to divorce and start over with someone new, carrying the same unexamined assumptions into the next relationship, than it is to sit with the uncomfortable truth that maybe the framework itself is broken. This is about pride, not the kind of pride that makes you arrogant, the kind of pride that makes you rigid, the psychological defense mechanism that says I'd rather be consistent than correct. I'd rather keep my worldview intact than adapt to reality. And when it comes to love and sex and relationships, this pride is destroying us. Because we've been sold a story, a beautiful story, a story about soulmates and destiny and happily ever after. And admitting that story is mythology, admitting that it was designed to sell movie tickets and wedding dresses and self-help books, that requires a kind of ego death most people will do anything to avoid. So let me tell you what this video is about. This isn't a guide to fixing your relationship. This isn't about communication techniques or date nights or keeping the spark alive. This is about something far more fundamental and far more uncomfortable. This is about why you can't change, even when you know you need to. Why you keep repeating the same patterns. Why you stay in relationships that drain you, or why you destroy relationships that could sustain you. And it all comes down to one thing: your inability to accept that love and sex are not the same thing, that they operate on different mechanisms, that they often work against each other, and that the romantic narrative you've been fed since childhood is not just incomplete, it's actively harmful. The pain you're experiencing, whether it's the slow death of passion in a long-term relationship, whether it's the cycle of intense attraction followed by inevitable disappointment, whether it's the guilt of wanting others while committed to one person, whether it's the emptiness of sexual variety without emotional depth, all of this stems from the same source. You're trying to use lust to build love. You're trying to make biology serve consciousness. You're trying to force two fundamentally incompatible drives to align. And when they don't, you think something is wrong with you, or wrong with your partner, or wrong with this specific relationship. But nothing is wrong except the expectation itself. I'm not going to give you 7 steps to a better relationship, because here's the thing about real wisdom, the kind that actually changes your life. It doesn't make things easier, it makes things clearer. And clarity is often more painful than confusion, because confusion allows you to maintain hope that maybe you just haven't figured it out yet. Maybe you just need to try harder. Maybe the next person will be different. Clarity removes that option. Clarity says this is the structure of the problem. This is why it exists. This is why it's not going away. And now you have to decide how to live with that. And what I've noticed, what I've seen again and again, is that people would rather stay confused than face clarity. Because clarity demands change, and change demands humility, and humility demands admitting you were wrong about something fundamental. And for most people, that's too much. It's too much ego death. It's too much loss of identity. So they stay in the confusion, they stay in the cycle. They keep believing that the problem is circumstantial rather than structural. And they suffer the same disappointments over and over, while calling it bad luck or bad timing or bad partners. This video is for the people who are exhausted from the cycle. The people who have enough self-awareness to recognize that the common denominator in all their relationship failures might be the assumptions they bring to relationships, not the people they choose. This is for people who would rather be honest than comfortable. So let me start by telling you a story. Let me tell you about Orpheus and Eurydice. You probably know the myth. Orpheus, the greatest musician who ever lived, falls in love with Eurydice. They marry. On their wedding day, she's bitten by a snake and dies. Orpheus is destroyed. His grief is so profound, his music so beautiful in its mourning, that the gods themselves take pity on him. They grant him something almost never granted. He can descend into the underworld and attempt to bring her back. So Orpheus goes down into the realm of the dead. He plays his lyre, he sings, and his music is so beautiful that it stops the tortures of the damned. It makes the Furies weep. It softens the heart of Hades himself. And Hades agrees. You can take Eurydice back to the world of the living, but there's one condition. She will follow behind you on the path up from the underworld. You cannot look back at her. You cannot turn to confirm she's there. You must trust. You must walk forward without verification until you reach the surface. Only then can you look at her. Orpheus agrees. He begins the journey. Eurydice follows. And as he walks, as he climbs through the darkness toward the light, the doubt grows. Is she really there? Is she following? Did Hades trick him? The silence behind him becomes unbearable. The uncertainty becomes torture. And just before he reaches the surface, just as the light becomes visible, he turns around. He looks back to confirm she's there. And the moment he looks, she vanishes. Forever. The deal is broken. She's pulled back into death, and this time there's no second chance. Orpheus emerges from the underworld alone, having destroyed the very thing he descended to save. Now, the traditional interpretation of this myth is about trust, about faith, about the danger of doubt. But I want you to see something else. I want you to see this as the perfect metaphor for what happens in every sexual relationship. Orpheus's backward glance is the exact error you make when you try to turn Eros into agape, when you try to make passion permanent, when you try to possess what can only exist in pursuit. Think about what Eurydice represents in this myth. She's not just a person, she's the object of absolute desire. She's the person who makes Orpheus feel so intensely that her absence creates a grief profound enough to move gods. That's Eros. That's the neurochemical flooding, the obsession, the feeling that this person is the only person, that life without them is unbearable. That's the underworld, the realm of intensity and death and transformation. And when Hades allows Orpheus to bring her back, the condition is crucial. You cannot look at her. You cannot try to confirm that the feeling is still there. You cannot try to capture or possess or verify the intensity. You have to let it be what it is, follow you without grasping at it. But Orpheus can't do that, because the uncertainty is too painful. The not knowing is too unbearable. He needs to confirm. He needs to possess. He needs to turn the experience of desire into the certainty of having. And the moment he does, the moment he tries to make the intensity into a permanent possession, it dies. This is what you do in relationships. The person you meet, the person who creates that surge of attraction, that flooding of dopamine and norepinephrine, that obsessive thinking, that feeling of destiny, their Eurydice, and that state, that neurochemical state of obsession. That's the underworld. It's intense. It's transformative. It's not meant to be permanent. It's meant to be a temporary state that serves a biological function, to get you to pair bond long enough to reproduce. But you don't want it to be temporary. You want to bring it to the surface. You want to make it last. You want to build a life in that state of intensity. So you pursue the relationship. You commit. You move in together. You get married. And all of that is the journey up from the underworld. And as you walk that path, as the relationship becomes more secure, more certain, more domestic, you start to feel the intensity fading, and it terrifies you. So you do what Orpheus did. You look back. You try to confirm the feeling is still there. You ask your partner, do you still love me the way you used to? Do you still want me? Do you still feel what we felt at the beginning? And in asking, in trying to confirm, in trying to possess the intensity, you kill it. Because Eros, the obsessive, passionate desire, cannot survive certainty. It requires obstacle. It requires uncertainty. It requires the gap between wanting and having. The moment you have someone completely, the moment the relationship is secure and certain, Eros begins to die. Not because you chose the wrong person. Not because the love wasn't real, but because that's the nature of Eros. It's designed to fade. It's designed to be temporary. It served its evolutionary purpose. It bonded you long enough to create investment. And now, it's done. But you interpret this as failure. You interpret the death of Eros as falling out of love. You think something is wrong. You think maybe they weren't the one after all. And this interpretation, this refusal to accept that what you're experiencing is not failure, but transformation, this is what keeps you trapped. Because instead of understanding that a different kind of love could begin now, a love built on choice rather than chemistry, you abandon ship. You go looking for someone new who will recreate that underworld intensity. And you find them. And the cycle begins again. And it will end the same way. Because you're still looking back. Still trying to possess what cannot be possessed. Here's the question the myth forces you to confront. What if Eurydice cannot survive the surface world? What if the intensity, the obsession, the eros, is fundamentally incompatible with the kind of stable, secure, domestic life you want to build? What if you have to choose? What if Orpheus's mistake wasn't just looking back, but believing he could have both the intensity of the underworld and the stability of the surface? And this is where most people get trapped. Because we've been taught we can have both. We've been taught that true love is both passionate and stable. That the right person will make you feel butterflies forever. That you can have wild, exciting sex and also build a peaceful, secure partnership. That you can maintain mystery and also share everything. That you can feel obsessed and also feel safe. But these are contradictions. These are incompatible psychological states. And the refusal to accept this, the pride that says I should be able to have everything. I shouldn't have to choose. I shouldn't have to compromise. This pride is what prevents you from ever building anything real. So let me take you deeper. Let me show you the machinery underneath this. Let me show you why this conflict between love and sex is not a personal failure, but a structural feature of being human. And to do that, we need to talk about Sigmund Freud. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Freud is outdated. Freud was wrong about most things. Freud had weird ideas about sexuality. And yes, a lot of Freud's specific theories have been rejected by modern psychology. But Freud understood something fundamental that we've forgotten. Something that gets buried under all the self-help optimism and sex-positive affirmations. Freud understood that civilization and sexual satisfaction are fundamentally at odds. In his book, Civilization and Its Discontents, Freud argued that culture, society, everything we call civilization, requires the suppression of instinct. And the most powerful instinct that must be suppressed is the sexual instinct, because unchecked sexuality is anarchic. It's promiscuous. It's indiscriminate. It wants variety. It wants novelty. It wants conquest and submission and domination, and all the things that cannot coexist with stable social order. So civilization creates institutions, marriage, monogamy, sexual norms, shame around promiscuity. These aren't arbitrary. They're necessary containment structures for a drive that would otherwise destroy social cohesion. But the cost of this containment is suffering. The cost is that you, as a sexual being, are never fully satisfied. You're always operating under repression, always denying parts of your nature, always feeling the tension between what you want and what you're allowed to have. Freud said this tension is the price of civilization. You can have culture, art, science, stable societies, long-term planning, accumulated knowledge, all the things that make human life more than just survival and reproduction. But you pay for it with sexual frustration. You pay for it with the constant low-level dissatisfaction of monogamy, the feeling that you're missing out, that the grass might be greener, that you're trapped. Now here's where Freud gets really interesting. He distinguished between two types of love, and this distinction is crucial. There's the sexual drive, what he called libido, which is hungry, demanding, selfish. It wants discharge, it wants orgasm, it wants conquest. It's about taking, about using the other person to satisfy your need. This is what we call lust. But then there's what Freud called aim-inhibited libido. This is when you take that sexual energy and redirect it. Instead of seeking discharge, you seek connection. Instead of wanting to possess the person sexually, you want to care for them, protect them, build a life with them. This is affection. This is tenderness. This is what we call love. And Freud's argument, which is devastating if you really sit with it, is that these two things are not just different, they're often inversely related. The more you sexualize someone, the harder it is to feel tender affection toward them. The more you idealize someone with pure affection, the harder it is to sexualize them. This is why the Madonna whore complex exists. This is why some men can only have passionate sex with women they don't respect, and can only respect women they can't sexualize. It's not just misogyny, though it often manifests that way. It's a deep split in the psyche between sexual desire and affectionate love, and it goes both ways. Women experience this too. The kind, stable, reliable partner who makes a good father often doesn't trigger the raw sexual attraction that the dangerous, unpredictable, emotionally unavailable partner does. It's not about gender. It's about the psychological incompatibility between safety and eroticism, between tenderness and raw desire. So when you enter a relationship based on intense sexual attraction, What you're experiencing is the libido in its pure form. You want that person. You're obsessed with them. Every text makes your heart race. Every touch is electric. You can't stop thinking about them. This is dopamine, norepinephrine, all the neurochemicals of obsession flooding your system. And it feels like love. It feels like the most real thing you've ever experienced. But Freud would say that's not love. That's just lust dressed up in romantic language. Real love, the kind that can sustain a long-term partnership, requires aim, inhibition. It requires that sexual energy to transform into something else: care, commitment, mutual support, partnership. And that transformation requires the intensity to die down. It requires the obsession to fade. Because you cannot be obsessed with someone and also treat them as a full, complex, autonomous human being. Obsession is narcissistic. It's about your feelings, your needs, your experience of them. Love is about seeing them clearly, including their flaws, and choosing to stay anyway. But here's the problem, and this is where the pride comes in. You don't want to accept this transformation. You want the intensity to last. You interpret the fading of obsession as a loss, as a failure, as falling out of love. You think, this isn't what I signed up for. I wanted the passion to continue. I wanted to feel this way forever. And so you resist the transformation. You fight against the natural progression from Eros to agape. And in fighting it, you prevent real love from ever developing. Because real love, mature love, the kind Freud is describing, only becomes possible after the lust fades. Only after you stop being high on neurochemicals can you see the person clearly. Only after the obsession ends can you make a real choice. Do I want to build a life with this actual human being, not the fantasy version my brain created during the honeymoon phase, but the real person with real flaws and real limitations? Most people can't do this. Most people, when the intensity fades, they panic. They think they made a mistake. They start looking for that intensity elsewhere, and they find it. And the cycle begins again. And they spend their entire lives chasing the dragon, chasing that initial high, never understanding that the high is not love. It's just the promise of love. And real love only begins when the high ends. This is the first layer of the conflict between love and sex. Sexual desire, raw libido, is fundamentally selfish and temporary. It's designed to make you obsessed long enough to pair bond and reproduce. Love, real, sustainable love, requires the death of that obsession and the birth of something quieter, more stable, less exciting, but more real. And your pride, your attachment to the intensity, your belief that you deserve to have both, prevents you from making that transition. But let's go deeper. Because Freud identified the problem, but there's another philosopher who identified the mechanism, who showed exactly how this works, why you can't trust your own attractions, why every romantic justification is suspect, and that philosopher is Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer had one of the darkest, most pessimistic philosophies ever created. His central idea was this: beneath consciousness, beneath reason, beneath everything you think of as you, there's a force he called the will. Not your will, not your personal desires, but the will with a capital W. The will to live, the blind, unconscious, insatiable drive that animates all of existence. It's what makes plants grow toward light, what makes animals hunt and mate and fight. It's pure striving, pure want, with no ultimate purpose, no endpoint, just endless wanting for the sake of wanting. And Schopenhauer said that you, your consciousness, your intellect, your rational mind, you're not in charge. You're a servant. The will is the master. Everything you think you choose, everything you think you decide, is actually the will using you to perpetuate itself. And nowhere is this more obvious than in sexual attraction. Schopenhauer devoted an entire essay to this called The Metaphysics of Sexual Love, and his argument is brutal in its clarity. He said, "You think you fall in love based on compatibility, personality, shared values, deep connection. But that's all post hoc rationalization. The will has already decided based on one criterion only: genetic optimization. You're attracted to people whose traits would balance yours in offspring. If you're short, you're attracted to tall people. If you're anxious, you're attracted to calm people. If you have weak bone structure, you're attracted to people with strong bone structure. Your type is not random. It's a genetic calculus happening beneath conscious awareness, selecting for complementary traits that would create viable, healthy offspring. And here's the devastating part. The will doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care if this person is good for you, compatible with you, kind to you, able to build a stable relationship with you. It only cares about genetic recombination. So you can feel overwhelming attraction to someone who is completely wrong for you, someone who makes you miserable, someone with whom you have nothing in common, no shared future, no compatibility, and that attraction, that chemistry, will feel more real, more powerful, more true than anything else. Meanwhile, someone who would actually make a good partner, someone stable and kind and compatible, might generate no attraction at all. Or worse, they might feel boring, safe, unsexy. And you'll interpret this lack of chemical response as lack of love, as settling, as not being with the right person. But what's actually happening is that the will has calculated that this person won't produce optimal genetic variety in your offspring, so it's not activating the neurochemical cascade of attraction. This is why chemistry is irrational, why you can't logic yourself into or out of attraction, why the heart wants what it wants, because it's not your heart, it's not you. It's the will using your body as an instrument of reproduction, and your conscious mind is just along for the ride, making up stories to justify what's already been decided unconsciously. Schopenhauer said the intellect is like a lame man who can see, riding on the back of a blind man who can walk. The blind man, the will, provides the power and direction. The intellect just narrates, creates explanations, builds romantic stories to justify where the will is already taking you. So when you say, "I love them," I can't explain it. I just know. There's just something about them. We have such a deep connection. I've never felt this way before. What you're really saying is, the will has identified them as a good genetic match, and I have no idea why I'm attracted. But I'm constructing a romantic narrative to make sense of feelings I didn't choose and can't control. And here's where the pride comes in again. You don't want to accept this. You don't want to believe that your attractions are just genetic algorithms running beneath awareness. You want to believe you choose. You want to believe that when you fall in love, it's because you've recognized something special in that person, something real, something meaningful. You want your romantic life to have significance, to be more than just biology executing a program. But Schopenhauer says that's the illusion. That's the trick. The will makes you feel like it's meaningful, precisely, so you'll do what it wants. If you knew you were just a puppet of reproductive drive, you might resist. You might make different choices. So the will hides itself. It makes attraction feel like destiny. It makes obsession feel like profound connection. It makes genetic compatibility feel like soulmate recognition. And the reason this is so important to understand is that it explains why you keep making the same mistakes, why you keep being attracted to the wrong people, why the people who are good for you feel boring, and the people who are bad for you feel exciting. It's not that you have bad taste. It's not that you're self-destructive. It's that you're operating on two levels. The conscious level, where you want partnership, stability, mutual respect, and the unconscious level, where the will is just running genetic calculations and pushing you toward whoever maximizes offspring viability, regardless of whether they'd make a good partner. The only way out is to recognize this, to see the machinery, to understand that attraction is not a reliable guide to relationship quality. That chemistry is often inversely related to compatibility, that the person who makes your heart race might be precisely the wrong person to build a life with, and the person who feels safe and boring might be exactly who you need, once you stop demanding that partnership feel like obsession. But again, the pride. The pride says, I shouldn't have to settle. I should be able to have both attraction and compatibility. I should be able to find someone who's both exciting and stable. I deserve the whole package. And that belief, that refusal to accept limitation, that's what keeps you cycling through relationships. Always disappointed, always thinking the next one will be different. Never recognizing that the problem isn't the people you're choosing. It's the framework you're using to choose them. Now let me take you even deeper, because there's a third layer to this, and it comes from evolutionary psychology, and it explains not just why you're attracted to the wrong people, but why even when you find the right person, even when you build a good relationship, the sexual attraction still fades. Why monogamy feels like slow death. Why you keep wanting novelty, even when you're with someone you love. Evolutionary psychologists talk about something called dual mating strategy. The idea is this: humans, especially, but not exclusively women, evolved to have two different sets of criteria for choosing mates. And these criteria are often in conflict. There's the short-term mating strategy, which prioritizes genetic quality. You want indicators of good genes, symmetry, height, dominance, confidence, risk-taking behavior. All the things that suggest this person has strong genetics, even if they might not stick around to help raise the kids. This is the sexy strategy. This is what creates raw attraction, what makes your body respond, what generates the chemical cascade. Then there's the long-term mating strategy, which prioritizes resources and investment. You want someone who will provide, protect, commit, help raise offspring, be emotionally stable, be reliable. This is the stable strategy. This is what your conscious mind knows you should want. This is what makes someone husband material or wife material. And here's the problem. These traits rarely coexist in maximum levels in one person. The guy who's sexually dominant and exciting and takes risks is often not the guy who's stable and reliable and emotionally available. The woman who's wild and spontaneous and sexually adventurous is often not the woman who's domestic and nurturing and ready to settle down. So you're torn. If you choose based on raw attraction, on genetic quality indicators, you might get great sex but terrible partnership. If you choose based on stability and resources, you might get great partnership but mediocre sex. And even if you find someone who has both, even if you get lucky and find someone who's both exciting and stable, there's still the Coolidge effect. The Coolidge effect is named after an apocryphal story about President Calvin Coolidge. The story goes that Coolidge and his wife were touring a farm separately. Mrs. Coolidge saw a rooster mating frequently and asked the farmer how often that happened. The farmer said dozens of times a day. Mrs. Coolidge said, "Tell that to the president." When the president came by, the farmer told him what his wife said. Coolidge asked, "Same hen every time?" The farmer said, "No, different hens." Coolidge said, "Tell that to Mrs. Coolidge." The point is that sexual attraction is novelty dependent. A male animal will lose interest in a female after mating, even if still sexually capable. But introduce a new female, and interest returns immediately. This isn't about love or connection. It's pure biology. Novel partners trigger renewed dopamine response. Familiar partners, no matter how attractive they were initially, become sexually routine. Humans show the same pattern. The 10th time you have sex with someone is less exciting than the first time, not because they've changed, but because novelty has worn off. The 100th time is even less exciting. By the 1000th time, if you're in a long-term monogamous relationship, sex has often become routine, obligatory, something you do to maintain the relationship rather than something driven by urgent desire. And both partners feel this. Both partners notice the decline in passion. Both partners start to wonder, is something wrong with us? Did I choose the wrong person? Am I not attracted to them anymore? Should we open the relationship? Should we introduce novelty through fantasy or role play or toys? Should we just accept that passionate sex is for young relationships and stable relationships are about companionship? All of these are attempts to solve a problem that has no solution within the framework of monogamy, because monogamy is fighting against the Coolidge effect. Monogamy says you will have sex with one person for the rest of your life. And evolution says sexual interest requires novelty, and these are incompatible directives. So what do? You have 3 options. Option 1. You accept the decline in sexual passion as the price of stability. You value the partnership more than the sex. You find other sources of meaning and excitement in life. You treat sex as maintenance, as bonding activity, not as primary source of pleasure. This is the traditional model. This is what most long-term marriages do, whether they admit it or not. Option 2. You refuse to accept the decline. You try to keep the passion alive through various means. You schedule date nights, you try new things in bed, you work on it. And sometimes this helps, but fundamentally, you're fighting entropy. You're trying to make the familiar novel again, and it's exhausting, and it often fails, and you end up feeling like you're performing desire rather than feeling it. Option 3. You abandon monogamy. You seek novelty through new partners, either through serial monogamy, leaving relationships when the passion fades and starting new ones, or through ethical non-monogamy, opening the relationship, allowing multiple partners. And this solves the novelty problem, but creates other problems: jealousy, time management, emotional complexity, and the reality that even in non-monogamous relationships, each individual relationship will still go through the same passion to familiarity arc. You're just distributing the problem across multiple relationships instead of solving it. None of these options is wrong. None is right. Each comes with costs, and which you choose depends on what you value, what you're willing to sacrifice, what trade-offs you can live with. But the point is, there is no option that gives you everything. There is no relationship structure that provides sustained, passionate sexual novelty and deep emotional security and long-term stability and complete sexual freedom and total commitment all at once. These are incompatible goods. You choose some and sacrifice others. And this is where the pride becomes most destructive. Because you've been told you can have it all. You've been told that the right person, the soulmate, the one, will satisfy every need. will be your best friend and your passionate lover and your co-parent and your adventure partner and your emotional support and your sexual fantasy all in one. And when that doesn't happen, when you can't find one person who's everything, or when you find someone who starts out as everything but gradually becomes just some things, you think you failed. You think something is wrong with you or with them or with the relationship. But nothing is wrong except the expectation. The expectation is the problem. The belief that you should be able to have incompatible goods simultaneously, that's the problem. And until you let go of that expectation, until you grieve the fantasy and accept limitation, you'll keep suffering the same disappointment in different relationships. Now let me bring in the Stoics, because they understood something about this that might be the most important insight of all. The Stoics made a distinction between what they called preferred indifference and true goods. Preferred indifference are things that it's reasonable to want, that make life more pleasant, but that are not essential to well-being. Things like health, wealth, pleasure, beauty. You can prefer these things, you can work toward them, but you shouldn't stake your happiness on them because they're outside your control. True goods, on the other hand, are things that are entirely within your control and that actually determine the quality of your character and your life. Things like wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. These are the only things that really matter, because these are the only things you can actually control. And the Stoics would say, sexual pleasure is a preferred indifferent. Romance is a preferred indifferent. Passionate attraction is a preferred indifferent. These are nice to have. They make life more pleasant, but they're not goods. They're not what your happiness should depend on, because you can't control them. You can't control who you're attracted to. You can't control whether attraction lasts. You can't control whether your partner stays attracted to you. You can't make yourself feel things you don't feel. What you can control is how you conduct yourself within desire. You can control whether you act on attractions that would harm your commitment. You can control whether you're honest with your partner. You can control whether you honor your word. You can control whether you're kind, whether you're patient, whether you're fair. These are goods. These are what matter. These are what make you a person of character or not. And this reframe is so important because it removes the moral weight from desire itself. You're not bad for being attracted to others while in a committed relationship. You're not failing if the passion fades. You're not settling if you choose someone you don't obsess over. Attraction is just weather. It changes. It's not in your control. What's in your control is what you do, how you treat people, whether you keep your commitments. The Stoics also had this practice called negative visualization. Every day, you imagine losing everything you have, your health, your relationships, your possessions. Not to be morbid, not to be pessimistic, but to inoculate yourself against attachment. Because the Stoics understood that when you make any external thing the sole source of your meaning, you become psychologically fragile. When that thing is threatened or lost, you shatter. Applied to relationships, if your entire sense of self-worth depends on your partner's desire for you, on whether they still look at you the way they did at the beginning, on whether the passion is still there, you're in a dangerously fragile position, because that's going to change. It's going to fade. And when it does, if your identity is built on it, you collapse. But if you understand from the beginning that attraction is temporary, that it will fade, that this is normal and expected and not a crisis, then when it happens, you're not destroyed. You're prepared. You can make a conscious choice. Do I want to continue this relationship based on partnership, based on commitment, based on shared values, even though the chemical obsession has ended? Or do I want to leave and pursue that obsession with someone new, understanding that it will also be temporary? Either choice is valid, but it's a choice made with clarity, not a reaction made in panic. And this brings me to Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, arguably the most powerful man in the ancient world. Every morning, he would write in his journal, reminding himself of his own mortality, reminding himself that he could lose everything by sunset. His power, his position, his loved ones, his life. Not because he was depressed, but because he understood that attachment to outcomes is a form of slavery. The moment you need something external to give your life meaning, you're no longer free. You're controlled by that need. If you need your partner to desire you to feel worthy, you're not free. You're trapped in dependence on their feelings, which you cannot control. If you need the relationship to be passionate, to feel alive, you're not free. You're trapped in dependence on neurochemistry, which is temporary by design. Freedom comes from building your sense of meaning on things you can actually control. Your integrity, your choices, your character. The Stoics called this living according to nature, which doesn't mean living according to biological impulse. It means living according to your rational nature, your capacity to choose based on wisdom rather than react based on feeling. And here's where this connects to the theme of pride and change. The reason you can't change, the reason you keep repeating the same patterns, is that you're attached to a narrative about what your life should be. You have an image of yourself in a passionate, fulfilling, perfect relationship. And when reality doesn't match that image, you have two options. Change the reality or change the image. Most people spend their whole lives trying to change the reality, trying to find the right person, trying to make the relationship match the fantasy, trying to force their partner or themselves to be someone they're not. And it never works, because the image itself is based on misunderstanding. The image is based on movies and songs and stories that are not constrained by biology or psychology or the reality of long-term partnership. The alternative is to change the image, to let go of the fantasy, to grieve the ideal relationship you thought you'd have and accept the real relationship you can actually build. And this requires humility. It requires admitting you were wrong about what love is, what it requires, what it looks like over time. It requires ego death. And ego death is painful. That's why people avoid it. That's why they'd rather divorce and try again with someone new than examine their own assumptions. Because trying again with someone new lets you keep the fantasy alive. Lets you believe that you just haven't found the right person yet, that the next one might be different. Examining your assumptions forces you to admit that maybe the problem isn't the people you're choosing. Maybe the problem is what you're expecting from people. Let me give you an example of how this plays out in real life. There's a pattern I see constantly. Someone is in a long-term relationship. 5 years, 10 years, sometimes more. The passion has faded. Sex has become infrequent, routine. They still love their partner in a companionate way. They respect them. They're grateful for them. They share a life together. But they're not excited anymore. They don't feel alive. And then they meet someone new, maybe at work, maybe through a friend, maybe online. And there's a spark, there's chemistry. Suddenly they feel that old feeling again. The obsessive thinking, the anticipation, the aliveness. And they think, this is what I've been missing. This is what real love feels like. My current relationship must be dead if I can feel this way about someone else. So they have an affair, or they leave their partner for this new person. And the affair is incredible. It's passionate and intense and feels more real than anything they've experienced in years. And they think they've found what they were looking for. They think they've finally found the right person. But here's what happens next. The affair turns into a relationship. The novelty wears off. The neurochemicals normalize. And 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in, they're in the exact same place they were in their previous relationship. The passion has faded. Sex has become routine. They're starting to notice flaws they didn't see before. They're starting to feel that same restlessness. And they have 2 options. They can recognize the pattern. They can see that this is not about the person. This is about the structure of attraction and familiarity. They can understand that they didn't leave their previous partner for someone better. They left stable attachment for novel attraction, and novel attraction always becomes familiar, and familiar always loses intensity. Or they can maintain the illusion. They can say, this person wasn't the right one either. I need to keep looking. And they do, and the cycle continues. And they spend their whole life chasing a feeling that is designed to be temporary, never understanding that they're on a hedonic treadmill, never understanding that the problem is not the people they're choosing, but the expectation that intensity should last. This is the trap of serial monogamy. You're not actually trying different relationships. You're trying the same relationship over and over with different people, expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. But you can't see it because your pride won't let you. Your pride says, I deserve to feel passionate. I deserve to feel alive. I shouldn't have to settle for a relationship that's become routine. But what if routine is not failure? What if routine is what happens when you've actually built something stable? What if the exciting phase is not the relationship? It's just the preview, the advertisement, the neurochemical bribe to get you to commit. And the real relationship, the actual experience of partnership, only begins after that phase ends. This is what arranged marriages understood that romantic marriages don't. In traditional cultures with arranged marriages, the couple often had no choice, no attraction, no chemistry. They were matched based on family, economics, social standing. They went into the marriage with no illusions about passion. They knew they were building a partnership, not chasing a feeling. And what happened? Many of these marriages developed deep affection over time, not because the people were perfectly compatible, but because they committed to the practice of partnership without expecting it to feel like obsession. They built intimacy through shared experience, through raising children together, through facing hardship together. And often they would say they grew to love each other in a way that was deeper, more stable, more real than romantic attraction. Meanwhile, in romantic marriages, in the modern Western model, people choose based on passion. They marry because they can't imagine living without this person. And then they're shocked when, 5 years in, they can easily imagine living without them. They're shocked when the person they couldn't stop thinking about becomes the person they take for granted. They interpret this as failure, as mistake, as wrong choice. But it's not. It's just the predictable progression from novel to familiar. And if you understood this going in, if you expected it, if you knew that the obsession is temporary and the real work begins after it fades, you could navigate it. You could say, okay, the honeymoon is over. Now what do we build? What kind of partnership do we want? What values do we share? How do we want to structure our life together? But most people never get there because they panic when the obsession fades. They think something is wrong. They think they need to fix it or leave. They never give the real relationship a chance to develop because they're mourning the loss of the fantasy relationship. Now let me introduce you to another concept, and this one is from Jacques Lacan, the psychoanalyst. Lacan said something that sounds paradoxical, but is psychologically precise. Desire is desire for desire. What he meant is that you don't actually want the object. You want the state of wanting. You don't want to have the person. You want to want them. Think about this in your own experience. The anticipation before a first date is often better than the date itself. The pursuit is often more exciting than the capture. The fantasy is often more satisfying than the reality. Why? Because wanting feels alive. Wanting gives you energy, gives you purpose, gives you something to think about, something to look forward to. Having is flat by comparison. Having is just Tuesday. This is why you lose interest in people once they're fully available. This is why the person who's uncertain, who's a little distant, who you're not sure about, that person stays interesting. While the person who's completely devoted, completely available, completely yours, that person becomes boring. Not because they've changed, but because certainty is the death of desire. Lacan said desire requires lack. It requires gap. It requires the space between you and the object. Once you close that gap, once you possess the object completely, there's nothing left to desire. The wanting is satisfied, which means the wanting is over, which means the alive feeling is over. This is the structural impossibility at the heart of romantic relationships. You want the person, you pursue them, you win them, and in winning them, you lose the wanting. And losing the wanting, you lose the aliveness. So you start to feel dead in the relationship. And you interpret this as the relationship being wrong, when really it's just the inevitable result of getting what you wanted. The solution is not to keep pursuing new people. That's just externalizing the problem. You'll get the same result every time, because the problem is structural, not personal. The solution is to understand that eroticism requires otherness. It requires mystery. It requires not knowing everything about the person. It requires maintaining some separation, even within togetherness. This is why some long-term couples manage to maintain sexual interest. They maintain separateness. They have their own friends, their own interests, their own lives. They don't try to merge completely. They allow the partner to remain somewhat unknown, somewhat other. They create space within the relationship for mystery to exist. But this is hard, because the cultural narrative says love is merging. Love is becoming one. Love is knowing everything about each other. Love is never being apart. And if you believe that narrative, you'll suffocate the eroticism while trying to deepen the love. You'll create complete familiarity, which creates comfort and security but kills desire. So you're stuck. If you maintain mystery, you might have better sex but less intimacy. If you pursue complete intimacy, you might have deeper connection but worse sex. You can't have maximum intimacy and maximum eroticism simultaneously because they require contradictory conditions. And again, this is where the pride comes in. The pride that says, I should be able to have both. Other people have both. The right relationship would give me both. I shouldn't have to choose. But you do have to choose. Or more precisely, you have to find some balance, some compromise. And accept that the balance will never be perfect, will always involve sacrifice of one thing for another thing. Let me bring this back to the Greeks, because they understood this split in a way we've forgotten. They had different words for different kinds of love. Eros, which is passionate, sexual, possessive love. The kind that makes you crazy. the kind that's about wanting, about hunger, about need. Philia, which is friendship, love, companionate love, the love between equals who respect each other. And agape, which is unconditional, selfless, committed love, the kind of love that remains even when feelings change, even when the other person disappoints you, even when circumstances are hard. Modern English collapses all of these into one word: love. And this creates massive confusion because you think love is supposed to be all of these things at once. You think the person you have Eros for should also be your best friend, should also be someone you'd commit to unconditionally. But these are different things. They serve different purposes. They operate on different mechanisms. Eros is about you and your feelings. It's narcissistic in the technical sense. When you say I love you during the Eros phase, what you mean is, I love how you make me feel. I love the version of myself I become when I'm with you. I love the story I tell about us. It's not really about them. It's about your experience of them. Philia is mutual. It's about genuine enjoyment of the other person's company, respect for their character, appreciation for who they are. It's less intense than Eros, but more stable. It's the foundation of actual partnership. Agape is transcendent. It's the choice to commit regardless of feeling. It's saying, I will be here for you even when I don't feel like it, even when you're difficult, even when I'm attracted to someone else, even when the relationship is hard. This is not based on emotion, it's based on decision. And the Greeks understood these were separate. They didn't expect to get all three from one person. But we do. We expect our romantic partner to generate Eros and also be our best friend and also be someone we can build an unconditional lifelong commitment with. And sometimes you get lucky and one person provides all three. But often they don't. Often the person who generates intense Eros is not someone who'd make a good friend or committed partner. Often the person who'd make a great friend and partner doesn't generate much Eros. So what do? You choose what matters most to you, and whatever you choose, you grieve what you didn't get. You accept limitation. You accept that you're a finite being in a finite world, and you cannot have infinite satisfaction. But the pride, the modern pride, the cultural message, it says, you can have it all. You deserve it all. Don't settle. Keep looking until you find someone who's everything. And that message is poison. It's a recipe for perpetual disappointment. Because even if you find someone who starts out as everything, they won't stay that way. The Eros will fade. And then you're left choosing whether to value the philia and agape that remain, or to leave in search of Eros with someone new. And this is the central choice you face in every long-term relationship. Do you stay for the stable goods, the partnership, the shared life, the commitment? Or do you leave for the chance at intensity again? Neither is wrong, but you have to know what you're choosing and why. You have to be conscious. You have to make the choice with eyes open, understanding the cost and the gain. What I see most often is people who can't make the choice. They stay, but they resent staying. They feel trapped. They fantasize about leaving. They have emotional affairs. They cultivate backup options. They live in the relationship while constantly looking at the exit. And this half-committed state is the worst of both worlds. They don't get the freedom and excitement of being single. And they don't get the depth and security of being fully committed. Or they leave, but they immediately seek the same thing with someone new. They don't embrace being single. They don't explore what freedom actually offers. They just trade one relationship for another and then wonder why they end up in the same place. The pattern repeats because the person hasn't changed. They're bringing the same expectations, the same pride, the same refusal to accept limitation into each new relationship. And each relationship reveals the same truth. You cannot make another person responsible for your aliveness. You cannot outsource your sense of meaning to romance. You cannot expect any relationship to give you something you haven't cultivated in yourself. This is where existentialism comes in. Sartre said, existence precedes essence. You're not born with a nature or a purpose. You create yourself through your choices. You are radically free and radically responsible. And this is terrifying because it means there's no script, no guarantee, no right answer. Applied to relationships, there is no such thing as the one. There is no perfect person waiting for you who will complete you. There are just other people, flawed humans like you, and you choose which flaws you can live with, which goods you value most, which trade-offs you're willing to make. And in choosing, you create the meaning. A relationship is not meaningful because you found the right person. It's meaningful because you chose to make it meaningful through commitment, through effort, through staying when it's hard, through building something together over time. The meaning is not discovered, it's created. But this requires you to let go of the romantic narrative, the narrative that says, when you meet the right person, it will be easy. You'll just know. It will feel right. You won't have doubts. The relationship will flow naturally. You won't have to work at it because it's meant to be. All of that is fantasy. Real relationships require work. They require compromise. They require you to navigate conflicting needs and desires. They require you to show up on days when you don't feel like it. They require you to choose the relationship over your momentary feelings. And this is hard. It's supposed to be hard. Anything worth building is hard. But we've been taught that if it's hard, something is wrong. If you have to work at it, it's not the right relationship. If you have doubts, you should leave. And this message, this idea that love should be effortless, this is what destroys relationships. Because people encounter the inevitable difficulty of long-term partnership, and they interpret it as a sign they made a mistake, rather than as a normal part of building something real. So they leave, and they take their unexamined assumptions into the next relationship, and the cycle continues. Breaking the cycle requires change, real change, not changing partners. Changing yourself, changing your expectations, changing your framework, changing what you believe relationship is for, what it can provide, what it requires. And this is where we come to the hardest part, because change is painful. Change requires admitting you were wrong. Change requires grieving the fantasy you've been carrying. Change requires accepting that the story you told yourself about your life was incomplete or inaccurate. Change requires ego death, and most people cannot do this. Most people's pride is too strong. They would rather be consistently wrong than admit error. They would rather keep suffering in the same patterns than face the discomfort of transformation. They would rather blame circumstances, blame partners, blame timing, than look at themselves and say, I am the common denominator. My assumptions are the problem. I need to change. This is what the Buddha meant by attachment being the root of suffering. You're attached to a vision of what your life should be. You're attached to the idea that you deserve certain experiences. You're attached to the belief that the right relationship will make you happy. And these attachments create suffering because reality doesn't care what you think you deserve. Reality is what it is. And if your model of reality is wrong, You'll keep crashing into the same walls. The only way out is to change the model, to update your beliefs based on evidence, to let go of what's not working, to grieve the loss of the fantasy and accept what's actually possible. But this is so hard because the fantasy is beautiful. The fantasy promises you can have everything. The fantasy says you'll find someone who makes you feel the way you felt at the beginning forever. Someone who understands you completely, who fulfills all your needs, who makes life easy and exciting and meaningful. The fantasy promises completion, and admitting the fantasy is impossible. Admitting you're not going to find that. Admitting that even if you did find it temporarily, it wouldn't last. That's devastating. That feels like giving up hope. That feels like settling for less. But it's not. It's trading a beautiful lie for a difficult truth. And the truth, while less aesthetically pleasing, is actually more livable. Because the truth doesn't promise you'll never feel disappointment. It promises that if you accept limitation, if you grieve what you can't have, if you choose consciously based on what actually matters to you, you can build something real. Something that lasts not because it's effortless, but because you keep choosing it. Think about anything you've built in your life that you're proud of. Your education, your career, your skills, your friendships. Did any of those things just happen? Did they require no effort? Did they never involve doubt or difficulty? No. They required sustained effort. They required you to keep showing up even when you didn't feel like it. They required you to push through obstacles. They required commitment. Why would relationships be different? Why would the most complex, most intimate, most vulnerable thing you do with another human being be the one thing that's supposed to be easy? It makes no sense. Of course it's hard. Of course it requires work. Of course it requires you to navigate conflict and difference and disappointment. The question is whether you're willing to do that work, whether you value the relationship enough to choose it when it's not exciting, whether you can commit not just when you're in love, but when you're not sure how you feel, whether you can see partnership as a practice, as something you build over time, rather than as a feeling you're supposed to sustain. And if you can do that, if you can make that shift, then the decline of passion stops being a crisis. It becomes a transition. The end of the honeymoon phase stops being failure. It becomes the beginning of real partnership. The attraction to others stops being a sign you're with the wrong person. It becomes irrelevant data, just weather, just the will doing what it does, which you acknowledge and then ignore, because your commitment is not based on fleeting attraction. This is maturity. This is what it looks like to be an adult in relationship, not someone who's conquered desire or transcended biology, just someone who's conscious, someone who knows what they're doing and why, someone who's made a choice and honors that choice even when it's hard. But getting there requires humility. It requires admitting that you don't know everything, that you've been operating on false assumptions, that you need to change. And this is where pride becomes the enemy. Pride says, I already know what love is. I already know what I need. I already know what I deserve. Pride resists new information. Pride resists change. Pride would rather be right than be happy. And this is why people stay stuck. Not because they can't change, because they won't, because changing would require admitting they were wrong, and admitting you were wrong about something as fundamental as love, as central to your identity as your relationship choices. That's too much. That's ego death. And ego death feels like actual death. So instead they stay in pride. They defend their position. They blame others. They say, I'm not the problem, everyone else is. My exes were all wrong for me. I just haven't found the right person yet. I know what I want, and I won't settle. And these statements might feel empowering, but they're actually prison bars. They're the walls that keep you trapped in repetition. The alternative is humility. Humility says, maybe I don't know. Maybe my model is wrong. Maybe what I think I want is not what I actually need. Maybe I've been chasing something that doesn't exist. Maybe I need to learn. Maybe I need to change. And humility creates space for growth. Humility allows you to receive new information, to update your beliefs, to try something different. Humility is what allows transformation. Think about any area of your life where you've actually grown. Did you grow by doubling down on what you already believed? Or did you grow by questioning yourself, by being wrong, by trying something new, by allowing yourself to be a beginner again? All growth comes through humility. All stagnation comes through pride. So the question I want to leave you with is this: are you willing to be humble about love? Are you willing to examine your assumptions? Are you willing to consider that maybe the relationship advice you've internalized, maybe the romantic narrative you've been carrying, maybe the expectations you bring to partnership, maybe all of that is part of the problem? Because if you're not willing, if you're going to defend your current model no matter what, then nothing will change. You'll keep having the same experiences with different people. You'll keep being disappointed by the same patterns. You'll keep blaming circumstances while refusing to look at yourself. But if you are willing, if you can set your pride aside long enough to really look at this, to really examine the mechanisms I've described, to really sit with the possibility that the conflict between love and sex is structural and permanent, and not something you can solve by finding the right person, then something can shift. You can stop looking for someone to complete you and start building your own completeness. You can stop demanding that one person be everything and start appreciating what they actually offer. You can stop interpreting the fade of passion as failure and start seeing it as transformation into something different but equally valuable. You can stop being controlled by your attractions and start making choices based on your values. This doesn't mean you'll never feel frustrated. It doesn't mean you'll never want novelty. It doesn't mean you'll never be attracted to others. You're still human. You're still subject to the same biological drives as everyone else. But it means you'll be conscious. You'll know what you're feeling and why. You'll understand the mechanisms beneath the experience. And that understanding gives you freedom. Not freedom from desire, freedom to choose despite desire. Freedom to commit knowing commitment is a practice, not a feeling. Freedom to build something real instead of chasing something impossible. And in that freedom, there's something more valuable than intensity. There's peace, there's dignity, there's integrity. There's the satisfaction of being the kind of person who keeps their word, who honors their commitments, who treats other humans with respect, even when they're no longer convenient sources of pleasure. This is what the Stoics meant by virtue. This is what existentialists meant by authenticity. This is what every wisdom tradition has pointed toward in its own language: becoming who you actually are, rather than who you think you should be, living with clarity rather than confusion, choosing consciously rather than reacting unconsciously. The price of this is giving up the fantasy. The price is accepting limitation. The price is grieving the impossible dream of finding one person who satisfies every need forever without effort. That's the price. And it's a high price because the fantasy is beautiful. But what you get in return is reality. And reality, while less aesthetically perfect than fantasy, has one crucial advantage. It's real. You can build on it. You can live in it. You can create actual meaning rather than chasing promised meaning that never materializes. So that's the offer. That's what I'm putting in front of you. You can keep the fantasy and keep suffering, or you can let go of the fantasy and start building something real. You can stay in pride and stay stuck, or you can embrace humility and allow transformation. Neither is easy, but only one actually leads somewhere. You are not broken. You're not defective. You're not doing it wrong. You're just operating on a false model. A model that says love and sex should align, should both come from the same person, should both last forever without work, should both satisfy you completely if you just find the right match. That model is wrong. Not morally wrong, factually wrong. It misunderstands biology. It misunderstands psychology. It misunderstands what long-term partnership actually requires. The correct model is this. Love and sex are different systems. They operate on different mechanisms. They serve different purposes. They often conflict with each other. One person can rarely maximize both. Even when they do, initially, it won't last because passion requires novelty and partnership requires familiarity. So you choose. You choose what matters more to you. You choose what you're willing to sacrifice. You choose knowing there is no perfect choice. And you honor that choice through your actions, not your feelings. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's simple, but it's not easy. Simple because the framework is clear. Not easy because it requires you to live in tension, to accept limitation, to make peace with loss, to be an adult in a culture that's addicted to adolescent romanticism. But if you can do it, if you can make that shift, the relief is profound. Because you stop waiting for your life to start once you find the right person. You stop blaming your partner for not being someone they never could be. You stop feeling defective because you're attracted to others. You stop feeling guilty because passion has faded. You just live. You make choices. You honor commitments. You appreciate what you have. You grieve what you don't. You show up. You do the work. You build something. And in building it, you create the meaning you were waiting for someone else to provide. This is freedom. Not freedom from limitation. Freedom within limitation. Not freedom from desire. Freedom from being controlled by desire. Not freedom from difficulty. Freedom to choose difficulty that matters over difficulty that doesn't. And that freedom, that conscious choice, that's what makes you human. Not your ability to feel intense emotion. Not your capacity for passion. Your ability to choose something other than what your biology demands. Your ability to create meaning in a universe that provides none. Your ability to commit to another person, not because you have to, not because you can't live without them, but because you've decided this is who you want to be. That's love, not eros, not obsession, not need, choice, conscious, ongoing, renewable choice to show up for another person and for the partnership you're building together. So that's what I'm offering you. Not a solution, not a fix, just a different way of seeing. A framework that might make your experience make sense. A way of understanding the conflict between love and sex that removes the moral judgment and the self-blame and just shows you the mechanisms. What you do with that is up to you. I can't tell you what to choose. I can't tell you whether to stay in your relationship or leave, whether to pursue monogamy or non-monogamy, whether to prioritize passion or stability. Those are your choices to make based on your values, your circumstances, your life. All I can do is give you the tools to make those choices consciously, to see clearly what you're choosing and why, to understand the costs and the gains, to accept responsibility for your decisions instead of blaming circumstance. And if you do that, if you take this framework and actually apply it to your life, you might not get everything you wanted, but you'll get something more valuable. You'll get to be conscious. You'll get to be free. You'll get to be the author of your own life, rather than a victim of expectations and disappointments. That's the path. It's not the easy path. It's not the path that promises you'll get everything. It's the path that promises, if you're willing to let go of the impossible, you might be able to build something real. And real, while less perfect than fantasy, has the advantage of actually existing, of being something you can touch and live in and grow from. So ask yourself, are you ready to let go of the fantasy? Are you ready to grieve the impossible dream? Are you ready to accept limitation and build within it? If the answer is yes, then you already know what to do. You already have everything you need. You just need the courage to do it. And if the answer is no, if you're not ready, that's okay too. This will be here when you are. The framework doesn't go anywhere. The truth doesn't expire. Whenever you're ready to stop running, whenever you're ready to stop blaming, whenever you're ready to look at yourself honestly, this perspective will still be here waiting for you. But I hope you don't wait too long, because time is the one thing you can't get back. Every day you spend in confusion is a day you could have spent in clarity. Every relationship you destroy because you're chasing an impossible standard is a relationship you could have built into something real if you'd had better tools. So take the tools, use them. See what happens when you stop trying to force reality to match fantasy and start working with reality as it actually is. That's all I have for you. That's the whole message. The conflict between love and sex is real. It's permanent. It's structural. You can't solve it. You can only navigate it consciously or unconsciously. And conscious navigation, while harder in the short term, is infinitely more sustainable in the long term. Be conscious. Be humble. Be honest. Make choices you can live with. Build something real. And let go of the need for it to be perfect. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be free. That's what it means to actually love someone instead of just needing them. If this perspective helped you see something differently, if it gave you language for something you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, if it made the conflict make sense in a way it didn't before, then it did what it was supposed to do. Leave a comment if you want. Tell me where you're struggling with this. Tell me what part landed or what part you're resisting. Tell me what you're going to do differently because of what you heard here. And if you want more of this, more frameworks that help you see clearly instead of feeling better, more philosophy and psychology applied to the actual difficulties of being human, then subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, because you deserve content that treats you like an intelligent adult capable of holding complexity, not a consumer who needs to be soothed and validated and sent on their way. This channel is for people who'd rather be honest than comfortable. If that's you, you're in the right place. The conflict between love and sex is permanent. The question is whether you'll live that conflict consciously or let it destroy you from the inside while you pretend it doesn't exist. Choose consciousness. Choose clarity. Choose freedom. That's it. That's the whole thing.